So in the last episode, we were discussing the void, that space of in between from the old self and the new self. So I'm going to go a little bit more detail in my experience in navigating in the void such that you can navigate for yourself through this and get to the other side of that new emerged version of you. So with that being said, let's get into it. Welcome to the 10th episode of Ember in the Dark. I am your host, Mike Warren, and today we're going to be talking about traversing the void and what that actually looks like, what that experience is. For me, I get it. It can be a scary process. And the hardest part is finding yourself in that void, in that space. And so being in this challenging place, which I've been experiencing, and if you can relate and resonate with it, this may support. Right. And, when the old self is really no longer existent, and we attempt to go back to things that maybe in the past had worked as a distraction or something that we felt good about. However, yet it doesn't feel the same or it doesn't hit the same. That's where we kind of feel a little lost. Right. And the new version of ourselves has yet to arise or us to be transformed into such that we can begin operating within that alignment. And so navigating this space can be very confusing. It feels like, we don't know up from down, left from right, forward, backward. All of it is literally just mixed up and can feel very confusing and chaotic. However, there is a purpose behind all of this. It is the creation of the new. And for something new to come in, unfortunately, as much as it sucks, something has to move out. There needs to be space created. Another way to look at it is, the old version of you has to die so the new version of you can be created. And what that comes with is habits, thought patterns, emotional patterns, beliefs, all of those things that we've been holding on to in the past and that we have created our identity around really have to fall. And the challenging part is surrendering and letting them go so that we can move forward. It's really letting go of the past, because if we hold on to it, we have no idea which way to move forward, because we're still bringing things that did not work, that are not aligned for our highest and greatest good forward. And those things need to be let go. Right. And so it is scary. It is uncomfortable. And the reason I say that is because we're truly stepping into the unknown. That feeling of, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if it's going to make a difference. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to count. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Right. And that's where we got to walk with a faith that, it's like a faith and a trust that taking these steps and moving forward is the best course of action, and not knowing if it's going to work out and not knowing if it's the right path or the right choice. And so this process is about finding yourself and at the same time creating yourself, right? It's tapping back into you, not the old you. It's tapping back into you through new experiences, new habits, that you start to feel that support. And that can be completely uncomfortable. So for example, myself, typically I'm a night owl. I prefer the evening, I would say evening, more so later at night when the world is quiet. Everyone's sleeping. I kind of have my own space. It's just me and myself, nighttime. And what I've been recognizing with sleep, for example, is the late nights, they don't serve me anymore. When I'm up late, I tend to, sleep in a little bit later than I'd like to. And the times that I've actually committed to, really give my sleep a shot and really get that rest and that schedule committed, it's when I start to shift, right? And so that's for an example of traversing this void and creating the new me. The old version of me prefers the late nights, sleeping in, doing those types of things. Whereas this newer version of me, where I get the proper rest, I get to bed on time, for me around that 10 o'clock mark, and I'm up early, 5 or 6 a.m. It's a struggle in the beginning. However, the days that I've been consistently doing that, I've noticed a shift. The shift being with myself of feeling like I'm getting out of this funk, getting out of this cloud, right? And then there are moments where a wave will hit me again and it's like I fall off, and it's just a matter of taking it moment by moment. And so for some of you, it might be something completely different. It might be taking time for yourself in the evenings or late at night, depending on where you are at, right? And so it's a matter of exploring. And this is the whole point of the shadow work. This is the whole point of going inward and really kind of facing ourselves in this process. The challenging moments, the angers, the frustrations, the overwhelm, the stress, depression, anxiety, whatever it is for you. It's kind of like I said in my early episodes of, sitting in front of a mirror and kind of examining and facing the good, the bad, the ugly within ourselves. And the whole point of that is not such that we beat ourselves up. It's there for us to examine where we can make adjustments and shifts moving forward. So for me, when it comes to action, when it comes to asserting myself and, keeping my word with myself when I go to do something, when I say I'm going to do something and actually following through with it, that is something that I've never really done in the past. And the results in my life show that. I'm not saying it's everywhere all the time. However, it was a very predominant piece for me. So now that's where I get to look at is asserting myself, having that drive or commitment to when I give my word. Because when I give my word for myself, that is where I've always fallen short in the past. So it's examining these pieces that we've been sitting with. However, we're too caught up in the emotional aspect of it because, yeah, it sucks. It's painful. It's hell. And if we sit there and get caught up in those emotions and spiral out of it and relive the thoughts and the stories and the emotions and all of those things, we're missing the gold. And basically that pain, that struggle is a signpost pointing for you where to examine and how to step forward and navigate through the void, right? And so whatever that is for you, whatever habits that you've been holding on to, and those habits include certain patterns of thinking, certain emotional patterns, certain belief systems, right? We examine those such that we can use them as stepping stones or way signs to direct us through this process. And so it becomes like really, like I said in the last episode, a blank canvas. Really start throwing things at the wall, throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks and commit to keeping those things going. And it's not like a one-time deal. That's the biggest one that I've had to really, really fight with is consistency. In this process for me, that's another example is consistency. Yeah, I can get committed and, I can get committed to a lot of intense things that most people won't be able to do. However, where I fall short is the commitment long term. So for example, my 40-day fast. Right? Most people would look at that and think that is great to fast for 40 days. However, in my mind, I'm like, it's only 40 days, right? It's not a year. It's not 2 years. It's not a lifestyle. It's not 10 years. It's not none of those things. I did a pretty intense gut cleanse back in September, I believe, October, 30-day cleanse, followed it to a T, right? However, as soon as the cleanse is done and I do the post-cleanse part, the diet started to shift to kind of go eating to whatever again and not maintaining the lifestyle moving forward. So for me, one of the things I've learned in this process is showing up for myself regardless of how I feel. I'm not perfect at all by this. And I'm not saying I've quote unquote mastered this. I'm still practicing and learning. Right. And so I'm just highlighting things for me in my life such that it can support you and maybe pointing at some similarities in your life that you can recognize and take action for you. Right. And so this space that I've been in for the last, 3.5, 4 years, I look at it and I expect, for me to do one thing. Like I've mentioned in earlier episodes, I've attempted many, many modalities, Reiki, traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, herbology, PDRT therapy, you name it, I've pretty much played with it and explored it. And if it didn't work for longer than a couple days, it was kind of like nothing works. On to the next. And really, it feels like the walls have been closing in. And I recognize it now as a benefit that it's really focusing me to be the one to choose in and be consistent. That is my journey. For others, it might be how you show up in relationships. For some other people, it might be in how you communicate. It's going to be different for everybody. However, recognizing what is the theme of your experience, and typically in these denser experiences with the shame, the guilt, regret, the depression, those things, they all kind of have like a common story that's playing. And it's that story we want to look at. What is it telling us? What areas in our life do we feel those things about? And it's not there to beat up or spiral out deeper with as a form of punishment. However, it's a sign to be like, hey, this is the area to focus and improve upon. And that's how you traverse the void, is because those areas of neglect, for whatever reason we're neglecting them, and this is where you can get into some modalities called parts work or shadow work, because the whole point of that is somewhere along the line, we have fragmented ourselves and we've shunned or resisted aspects of ourselves, saying, I don't like that part of me. I think that part of me is horrible or bad, whatever story, it doesn't matter. And because of doing that, what actually is happening is we are seeping away, or like I said, fragmented ourselves, and we kind of box ourselves into a smaller piece versus accepting ourselves as a whole. And so this process of traversing the void is what brings those pieces together, where we begin to accept ourselves wholly. And as we begin to accept ourselves in our own wholeness, the good news is those parts that we've shunned or kind of put away, they are actually there to serve us in some capacity, right? And an example I love to use is, a young child that is, 3, 4, 5 years old. If they don't get attention, what do? They act out. They get louder, they make a mess, they do whatever, and it's not wrong thing. It's not something that's wrong or bad. It's just the child that's looking for attention. And so these fragmented aspects of ourselves are doing the same thing. And we're kind of just sitting with those pieces. The whole point being to bring love and appreciation to them. That's the light to the dark. Okay. And so when we're in this void, it's hard to do that. Because like I said earlier, we don't know left from right and up from down and what's this way or what's that way, what's right, what's wrong. It's kind of like, really chaotic. And so where to start is to take that step back and really take an account on your life. What are the areas that when you look at them, you feel some denser emotion around, right? Is it with your family? Things left unsaid or boundaries you've maybe never set up and people have been taken advantage of. Maybe it's not actioning things where, with your family. Maybe it's being more present there. Maybe it's with yourself. Maybe it's how you've been treating yourself and really not taking care of yourself. And you keep going and back to these habits or ways of thinking that align with that old version of self. And then that's where these waves, at least in my experience, is what I'm starting to see in connecting the dots. That's where these waves keep coming back. It's the times that I go to the bad habits. Let me correct myself. Not bad habits. They're the habits that are no longer effective. They worked at a time. They were great for a time and it was awesome. However, now they are ineffective because they no longer align or serve me in my highest and greatest good. And so I really have to take an account on my life and what actions am I taking? And for me, it needs to be daily consistent action. Because this process, like I was saying, it has been about 3.5, 4 years, and I'm unable to expect it to shift 1 day, 2 days, right? And like that's why I was saying about the consistency for me is the fact that I can do things for short term and I feel good short term. However, it's like, how committed am I? If I really want to make a difference, if I really want to enact a change in my life, it's something I got to do consistently day in, day out, regardless of what's going on. And the moments and the times that I've actually stepped into that and I've been consistent for, a week, and I'm only saying this short term because I'm still practicing it, I notice a shift slowly and subtly taking place. My patience, I'm the type of guy that wants it yesterday. I have very low patience when it comes to things with myself. I have a ton of patience for other people. However, for myself, I expect it to be on par right now, perfect. If that's you, I totally get it. Right. And this is the time to really take the patience and with yourself in the consistent daily actions. And it might be something simple, making your bed every day. Maybe it's just making your bed every day and you do that for 30 days, right? And then from there, you can start to add other things. Then it's from making your bed. Maybe it's tidying your room, making sure your room is tidy all the time, right? And for some of us, I know this is my case as well, is there's times where like the hygiene for self, like, there's times where I won't brush my teeth. It's what it is. It just feels pointless at times, right? And so creating a hygiene plan to show self-care and self-love, whatever that is for you, to start building those habits. And it's uncomfortable because this new version of you is going to require completely new habits. And if we've never done these habits or have experienced these habits, of course it feels crazy. Of course it feels unknown because it's habits that we have never established for ourselves in the past. Like I said, me being a night owl, that's just how I've always been, bedtime, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. And by operating that way and switching that till 10, at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., that's a big shift for me. For other people, they're in bed by 7, 8, 9 o'clock. And that's like perfect for them. To me, that's like absurd, right? So the person you are becoming is going to require new habits in all facets of your life. And where to begin is reflecting, where have I been sitting? What are the pains that I've been feeling in regards to the emotional context? And when I think about those emotional pieces, where are they pointing in my life? Is it around finances? Is it around health? Is it around relationships? Is it around myself? Where are those things? Where are they pointing such that I can begin creating new habits there? So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I truly appreciate it. And again, I always want you to remember that no matter how dark it gets, even the smallest of embers can light your path.